The storm had been threatening the coast of Tofino for 3 days, a bruised purple bruise on the horizon that refused to heal. Elena adjusted the lens of her camera, framing the shot. Through the viewfinder, the structure looked less like a house and more like a crystal shard driven into the cliffside. The glass house. It was Caleb Vance's masterpiece and his fortress. She shivered, pulling her coat tighter. She had been here for a week, commissioned to photograph his work for Architectural Digest, but the man himself remained a ghost. He left coffee on the counter in the mornings and vanished into his studio in the basement until the moon was high. "The light is dying," a deep voice rumbled behind her. Elena didn't jump. She lowered the camera and turned. Caleb was standing in the open sliding door. He was tall, wearing a charcoal sweater that had seen better days, his hands covered in a fine layer of gray clay dust. His eyes were the color of the storm, dark, turbulent, and unreadable. "The light is dying," Elena countered, her voice steady despite the way her pulse jumped every time he entered a room. "It's moody, honest." Caleb leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. The muscles in his forearms shifted under the rolled-up sleeves. "It's dangerous. The forecast says the bridge might wash out tonight. If you want to leave, Elena, you need to go now." Elena looked back at the ocean. The waves were white-capped teeth, gnashing at the rocks. She looked back at him. "I'm not finished, unless you're kicking me out." Caleb held her gaze for a long moment. The air between them, usually filled with polite professional silence, suddenly felt thick, charged with static electricity. "Stay," he said. The word rough, like he hadn't meant to say it. "But don't say I didn't warn you." By 8 p.m., the world was awash of black and gray. The power had cut out an hour ago, leaving the massive glass house illuminated only by the lightning that fractured the sky and the dozen pillar candles Elena had found in the pantry. They sat in the living room, a vast space where the glass walls made it feel like they were sitting inside the storm itself. The rain lashed against the panes, a rhythmic, deafening drumbeat. Caleb poured 2 glasses of dark red wine. The candlelight flickered, casting dancing shadows across his sharp jawline and the hollow of his throat. "You don't like people looking at your work," Elena observed, taking the glass he offered. Their fingers brushed. The contact was brief, but it sent a shock of heat straight up her arm. "I don't like people looking at me," Caleb corrected. He took a sip, watching her over the rim of the glass. "There's a difference. My work is external. I am private." "Yet, here I am," Elena whispered, "trapped in your glass box. You chose to stay." Caleb set his glass down on the low coffee table and leaned forward. The shift in proximity changed everything. He was suddenly close, his scent, rain, clay, and cedar filling her senses. "Why did you stay, Elena? Really?" Elena's breath hitched. She could lie. She could say it was for the portfolio, for the magazine. But the way he looked at her, stripping away her defenses without touching her, made lying impossible. "Because I wanted to see who lived in the glass house," she admitted softly. "I wanted to know if the man matched the art." "And?" His voice dropped an octave, a low rumble that competed with the thunder. "And I think the man is lonelier than the art lets on." Caleb's eyes darkened. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face, before his thumb grazed her cheekbone. The roughness of his skin against her softness made her tremble. "Careful, Elena. You're looking too closely." The thunder cracked directly overhead, shaking the floorboards beneath them. Elena gasped, instinctively leaning toward him. Caleb didn't hesitate. He caught her, his hand sliding around to the nape of her neck, his fingers tangling in her hair. The space between them vanished. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was like the storm outside, sudden, overwhelming, and inevitable. Caleb kissed her with a hunger that spoke of months of silence, years of solitude. Elena made a low sound in her throat, her hands gripping his shoulders, pulling him closer. He tasted of wine and intensity. He pulled back just an inch, their foreheads resting together, both of them breathing hard. The candlelight reflected in his eyes, which were blown wide with desire. "I've been trying to stay away from you all week," Caleb confessed, his voice ragged. "Hearing you walk around upstairs, watching you through the lens, it's been torture." "Why torture?" Elena whispered, running her hands down his chest, feeling the heavy beat of his heart under the wool sweater. "Because I knew if I started this—" He trailed his lips down her jawline to the sensitive spot below her ear, making her arch into him. "I wouldn't be able to stop." He lifted her easily, moving them from the chair to the plush rug in front of the unlit fireplace. The storm raged outside, wind howling against the glass, but inside, the world had narrowed down to the warmth of skin and the desperate friction of their bodies. Elena pulled his sweater over his head, revealing the defined landscape of his torso, shadows and light playing across his skin. She ran her hands over his scars, the marks of a sculptor, and he shuddered under her touch. "Elena," he groaned, saying her name like a prayer or a plea. When he kissed her again, it was slower, deeper, a promise. The isolation of the house, the fury of the ocean, the darkness, it all faded away. There was only the heat of the candles, the taste of him, and the electric realization that this storm was exactly where she was supposed to be. The sun broke through at 6 a.m. The storm had passed, leaving the sky a washed-out, innocent blue. The ocean was calm, lapping gently at the rocks below. Elena woke up tangled in the sheets of Caleb's bed. The master bedroom had a skylight, and the morning sun was warming her bare shoulder. She turned. Caleb was asleep on his stomach, one arm thrown over his head, the tension finally gone from his frame. She quietly slipped out of bed and pulled on one of his shirts. She walked out to the living room, to the wall of glass. The view was breathtaking, the world scrubbed clean. She heard a footstep behind her. Strong arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against a warm, solid chest. Caleb buried his face in her hair. "The bridge is probably clear by now," he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. Elena leaned back into him, covering his hands with hers. "Probably." "Don't go," he said. It wasn't a command this time. It was a request. Elena turned in his arms, looking up at him. The brooding artist was still there, but the walls were glass now. She could see inside. "I still have a few rolls of film left," she smiled, "and the lighting is perfect." Caleb smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his face. He leaned down and kissed her, soft and lingering. "Let the film wait. Come back to bed."